We're just waiting a couple of minutes for our legal rep to come back into the meeting.
Okay.
Hi there, sorry about that. So we'll make a start. So good morning, it's now 10:34. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee to hear the application from Mellows Pavilion Cafe. I am Cassie Fraser-Shanley, Clerk of the Committee. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube for members of the public to view. The panel are here to listen to what those making representations, the applicant and the officers have to say, and then to take a decision about granting of a licensing application. Before I start, could I ask that when you are not speaking, please turn your microphone off. You will appear on the live stream screen when your microphone picks up sound, so this will stop the stream cutting to you unexpectedly. To mute or unmute your phone is *6. I will now read the names and roles of the attendees. When I read your name, please could you turn your mic and camera on to indicate that you are present. Members of the panel, please could you also declare any interest. Councillor Eric Allen.
Present and declare an interest in that I am a member of the Local Government Association's Safer and Stronger Communities Board and a national spokesman on licensing.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Clifton.
I'm present and I have no interest to declare.
Jake Short.
I'm present and no declarations of interest.
Simon Khan, Legal Advisor to the panel.
Good morning. Yes, I'm present.
Hannah Smith, Licensing Officer.
Yes, I'm present.
Mr. Kernis, the applicant.
Yes, I'm present.
And the following people as other persons. So Mr. Agrawal, Mr. Crane,
Present.
Councillor Edward Joyce,
Yeah, I'm present.
Miss Ponna, is it Ponaya? Sorry. Miss Patel
Present.
and Miss Shepherd. I think you might be muted. We can see that you're present, Claire, so I'll just get Kathy, our clerk support, to help you get your mic on. So I'll move on to agenda.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Got it.
Agenda item 2. Can I ask a member of the panel to chair for this meeting and for another to second that?
Could I nominate Councillor Jake Short as chair of the meeting?
Yeah, but we need a seconder.
I will second that.
Great. So Councillor Jake Short, please could you continue through the agenda?
Thank you. As this is a virtual meeting, could I please ask that when you speak for the first time, could you please state your name clearly before you begin? Councillors, if you could introduce yourselves with your title and name, if other attendees could just state their name and role, sorry. You don't need to do this every time that you speak, but it will just help if you do it the first time round. Members of the panel, if you want to raise a point during the meeting, if you could use the chat box on the top right hand of your screen, where you can type question during the meeting. I'll be monitoring that and go to you in order. At this hearing, no cross-examination is allowed. All questions will be asked through me as the chair. As there are no declarations mentioned during the roll call, I'll move through agenda item 3 over to agenda item 4, which is the minutes of previous meetings. Can we agree the minutes for the following meetings? The 13th of August for the Wavy Line application and the 18th of August for the Sammy's Studio Star Barbers application.
I was only present at the second of those. I can agree that those were.
I can agree both, as I was at both.
I wasn't at either, so I can't agree.
That's quite all right. So those have been both agreed. If we move on to agenda item 5, which is the application for a new premises license held in respect of the premises known as Mellows Pavilion Cafe, Mellows Park, Stafford Road, Wallington. The procedure for this committee is available in the agenda pack. Could I now ask the licensing officer, Hannah Smith, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, my name is Hannah Smith. I'm the licensing officer. Today, the application is relating to Mellows Pavilion Cafe, which is in Mellows Park, Stafford Road, Wallington, SM6 9BU. This was made on the 14th of July 2020 by Kernish Trading Limited. The application seeks a new premises licence to authorise the supply of alcohol retail for consumption on the premises every day from 11 AM till 9 PM and recorded music every day from 9 AM till 9 o'clock. Please note, alcohol would only be able to be consumed in the licensed area as per the plan and cannot be taken away. Relevant pages of the application form are attached on Appendix 1 and the proposed hours of operation are laid out in Appendix 2. I can confirm that the application was advertised by way of a poster displayed at the premises and an advert within a local newspaper. The application was also advertised on the Sutton Council website. I can confirm that all responsible authorities received a copy of this application and no representations were received from the responsible authorities. However, 49 valid representations were received from other parties. The representations make reference to the matters that relate to the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and the protection of children from harm. A copy of all these representations are attached on Appendix 3. Photographs of the premises and a map showing the location of the premises are shown on Appendix 4 and 5. In considering this application, the committee is required to take into account the Secretary of State's guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and in its own Statement of Licensing Policy. Relevant paragraphs are attached on Appendix 6. If the application was today be granted, a number of proposed conditions were added as part of the applicant's operating schedule. These measures are attached on Appendix 7. I will happily answer any questions you may all have.
Okay, could I just wait a minute until Councillor Clifton has rejoined us? He seems to have dropped from the meeting. And just Councillor Allen has reminded me that this is agenda item 6, not 5, so I stand corrected.
I believe that Councillor Clifton has just rejoined us, so I think we can start, Chair.
Excellent.
Hello, I'm sorry about that. My Wi-Fi went down at the very moment that I didn't. I didn't. At a very inconvenient moment. So I'm on my telephone now. I will. My wife is trying to reconnect the Wi-Fi. If I get back onto the Wi-Fi, I'll get back onto it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being able to join us again. I know that it can be a bit difficult with virtual meetings and all of the stresses that can put on our Wi-Fi services, so don't worry about that. Could I just ask if members of the committee have any questions for the licensing officer on their report? I'll take that as no. And I'd like to therefore move on to bringing the applicant in. So could I ask Mr. David Kerness to provide your submission to the subcommittee, please? You'll have up to 15 minutes.
Hi, yeah, this is David Kerness. I'm the owner of the Mellows Pavilion Cafe. So just to give some background as to the reason why I've made the application, I don't think it'd probably be a surprise to anybody in the committee with what's happening with COVID, the difficulty that all businesses are in at the moment. We were closed for 2.5 months in the spring, and in a park cafe, spring and summer is where you make all your profit. To give an example, between October and February of last year, the cafe made quite a big loss, and you kind of expect that in the winter. Paying wages, buying the food, paying all utilities, utility bills, and not having anything like the revenue stream that you have in the summer. So losing the spring this year was devastating. At one point, I thought that there was a possibility we might even have to close down, because the only way of sustaining the business would have been to invest my own money into it. We've had a good summer. We've had a summer that's repaired a lot of the damage, and the government support has been pretty substantial. And that combined has meant that we're now in a position where I hope and believe that we can survive. So the reason for this, and it's so important, and I'm really pleased some of the members of the public are on the call, is I think a misrepresentation has been put out there about what we intend to do with this. The strategy for this was really so that I would have another tool to get me through the winter. I'm down to 10 covers inside. And I think, yes, Mr. Crane's on the call. And one of the things Mr. Crane said that we have, could we really have 20 people eating inside? And the answer to that is absolutely not. So with COVID restrictions, I'm down to 10 covers inside. I have an average transaction of about £5 per customer. So when I was doing the maths, I really couldn't see how I'm going to be operate throughout the winter for 3 months. And if we made a loss last year, the loss would be even more substantial this year. Something we tried last year was trying to create like a roast dinner environment, trying to attract people in even in really bad weather. And the feedback that I got from customers was that why would they come to the cafe where if they have a lovely roast dinner, all they can have is a glass of Coke or a bottle of water, where if they go to a harvester, they could then have a glass of wine or a pint of beer. So the strategy really was, how could I increase my per customer? And the easiest way to do that is through an alcohol license. That would be going from £5 transaction per transaction, probably would double. And that would therefore make up for the loss of headcount over the winter. And then, of course, you know, it'd be silly for me not to say there would be a benefit in the summer if you are still selling alcohol. Of course, people, that increase in transaction would carry on throughout the whole year. But the primary reason is I have to have a strategy to be able to get me through the winter. And I've got a few other ideas, but this would have been one of the main pillars that would have brought an additional revenue stream in. The net effect of not having the license could be that I would have to close over the winter. I'd have to weigh up, you know, the costs and the benefits. And without shadow of a doubt, I'd probably have to make a couple of staff redundant because I wouldn't be able to pay the wages. So I'm genuinely doing this in the best interest of my staff and the business. Then to try and address some of the concerns, because I've read in detail all of the concerns, and I've got to be honest, when I read the concerns, if that was presented to me, I'd probably be really worried as well. And I think if there's a Miss Ponnier on the call, it would seem to me, she wrote on her objection, I received this letter through the post. Now, I did blue notices, and at great expense, I did put a notice in the Sutton and Croydon Guardian. I didn't post any leaflets or letters. In some respects, I wish I had done. That may have been a better method. So I got a feeling that there's been some misrepresentation, something posted to the local residents, which hopefully I can try and readdress with this call today. So first of all, a lot has been mentioned about music, and it's really important to state I purposely didn't do amplified. This is non-amplified music. And even if I want to play a radio inside the CAF at low level, I still have to have a premises license for music. So the intention was so that instead of, at the moment, the only music I play in is through the television, where I have a BBC license, and I just pick one of the music channels up off there and play that at low level. It means I could actually have, you know, a nice speaker system in there, but again, at that same lower level. And my intention would be then just to have a couple of small speakers on the patio area. So again, you've got low level music. And I defy anyone to, you know, say to me that Stafford Road, one of, you know, a very, very busy road, the residents opposite would not be able to hear that. It's not, it would be non-amplified, and it would be really low level. So a lot of mention of music, but it simply would not be heard with what I've applied for, non-amplified low level music. A lot has been mentioned about security, but the cafe is the security in the park. If I had enough time today, I could go through all the things in the last year or so where I believe that I've helped and prevented, you know, but just being open and being present. People come to me if there's an issue, they come to me with lost property, they come to me if there's aggravation in the park, if there's repairs needed, and I'll always forward that information on or call the police or do whatever's necessary. So I feel that the cafe and our presence there actually adds, and when we do stay open in the summer, that is beneficial to security. One thing to note, something was mentioned about 4 o'clock closure. My lease states that in the summer, I'm supposed to stay open until at least 5:30, at least 5:30. So I'll come back onto timings later. Some mention of bins. I have probably more bins in my green area than the rest of the park put together. So when people are consuming food or using my green, that's where we're containing the rubbish in the park. And I think because I have that area, I wish I had statistics on it, but I'd like to believe we're one of the cleaner parks because I have that bin facility and because I have that extra area where when people are consuming food, the disposables, the majority of those disposables do retain in my area for me to then deal with and dispose of. There has been some mention of black bags being debris across the park. That's not my rubbish. Unfortunately, we get a lot of fly tippers, and around my skip, I'll regularly find 10 or 12 black bags that have just been dumped there. That happened again on Monday. Someone forced my skip open and filled it to the brim with black bags, and I had to arrange a pickup to be able to clear that. So the rubbish is not my rubbish. And again, I'm happy if any resident ever feels there's an issue there, I can show them the contents of the black bags to show that the ones that are distributed in the park are not mine. A lot was mentioned about the limit, about 100, you know, how 100 would be noisy, etc. I already kind of get close to that limit now. So the premises license has nothing to do with my limit. I have 20 at the front. I can, well, out of COVID, I can sit 20 inside and I can sit 60 people in the green. So that number is where I can sufficiently seat people as of now and has nothing to do with the premises license. That was just a question that's asked in the application, and that's how many people I can see in the green, inside and on the front tables. So in regards to the actual license, I've held a personal license for 25 years. My previous occupation, I was a store manager for Sainsbury's, Morrison's and Safeway. And I like to feel, you know, there's no blemishes on my record, and I understand premises licenses, you know, pretty well. As I said, I've had no issue with my personal license. What I want to really make clear here today is this is not about turning Mellows Pavilion Cafe into any kind of pub or any kind of, I don't want it to be the first point of call for someone that wants alcohol. It's supposed to be complementary and additional to the offer. So I'm happy to state, and I'm not sure how this could be ratified, I'm happy that I will only serve alcohol to people that purchase food. And when I say food, that means hot food. I'm happy that if it makes everybody happier, I'm happy to state the licence to finish at 5:30, not 9 o'clock. As I said, coming back to the timings, my lease said I should close at the earliest at 5:30. There are some times in the summer where we do stay open till 6, 7 o'clock. And obviously the reason why the lease insists on that is people using the park want access to toilets. I am the only toilets in the local area. So that's the reason why the expectation is I open longer in the summer. So when I put 9 o'clock, it had nothing to do with trying to open later and try and have some big events, or it was purely because I was trying to do within the spirit of the lease. And in the summer, it's daylight till 9 o'clock. But again, I'm happy to put that down to 5:30. I'm really not fussed about that. I'm happy to only serve over 25s. I think it's really important to stress here. I'm looking for this to be a complimentary offer. I want it to feel like as if you go to a harvester. You don't go to the harvester to have a drink. You tend to go there because primarily it's a food establishment, and that's what I'm looking. I do not want people to come to my establishment and actually purchase drink on its own. I want it to be, it's a complimentary offer. And the only people that would serve alcohol would either be myself or would be one other DPS that I would have fully trained up and signed off. And again, my commitment is if I'm there, or Marie, who would be the person signed off, we would not serve alcohol. So if I'm on holiday, or if Marie was on holiday, there would be days where we would not be serving alcohol. So I'm happy to put additional restrictions in because I really don't want it to come across that we want this to kind of be a pub themed establishment. It is primarily a park cafe, and we just want to offer the other thing, we wouldn't be selling spirits as well, so it would just be beer and wine, because I feel that's what would complement food and would make the winter strategy viable when I start pushing for roast dinners. As I said, the timings I've covered. I only have 10 covers. I think, as I said, Mr. Crane mentioned how could I fit 20 people in the COVID environment. I can't. I can only fit 10 in. And as I said, I've mentioned what my transactions are and the restrictions that I would have. And then the final couple of things, as I said, I do believe a letter has gone around which has kind of stated loud music. It hasn't stated not amplified. It's stated 100 people. Well, yeah, that's my maximum capacity. And at some points in the summer, I do get close to that anyway, but those 100 people are not consuming alcohol. So a letter has obviously been distributed that's given the kind of doomsday scenario of what this licence would possibly provide. And then also just how surprised I was when I saw the objections, because I've discussed this with my customers for about 6 months now, and I'm yet to have a customer that's been not in favour of it or said to me they think it's a bad idea. And I've had none of the objectors has actually come in to see me so I could actually talk it through, which is really disappointing. And I think given that opportunity, I could have, shown them the green, show them how it was going to work and explain it in the way that I'm explaining it to you guys now. In hindsight, I would have done a leaflet shot and I would have invited some of the local residents in and we could have had a discussion group, but things are already always great in hindsight. And that's obviously something I do regret. But hopefully I can allay some of the fears. I'm happy to put more restrictions in, but it's really, this is all about survival. This is about businesses trying to get through. And I've been lucky enough that we've been able to trade quite well over the summer. We've probably got a few more decent weeks of weather. And that's when, not just for me, but for many businesses, we're going to have a very, very tough 4 or 5 months. And I just want to do what I have to do to try and survive. That's my representation.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to questions from the panel, could I just check with our legal advisor, Simon Khan? Have you made a note of the conditions that were offered there? I've made a note myself about conditions around sale of alcohol with a substantial meal. I just want to check that you've got that too.
Yes, I've noted that. Happy only to serve alcohol with food. and I think there was an offer of
Up to 5:30, is that correct?
5:30, and I'm happy to stay. Well, I mean, I would strictly enforce Think 25, which I've been doing all my life, you know, working for supermarkets. But I'm happy to say that we would only serve over 25s as well.
Okay. Could I ask, did the panel have any questions? Just to remind Councillor Clifton, in case he's on mute, you have to press *6 to unmute. No? Okay. Councillor Allen, have you got any questions?
My only question is relating to the amplified music.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, sorry about that. Councillor Allen, if I come back to you, is that all right?
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Clifton, off you go.
You can hear me now, can you?
Yeah.
Hello? You can hear me. Okay. So I want to thank you very much for that. So I just want to say, you did at the outset say that you were the owner of the Mellows Cafe, but you then later talked about a lease. Can you just clarify? Do you own it, or are you a leaseholder?
I'm a leaseholder. Sutton Council own the freehold, and I lease. And I think it's got about another 20 years in the lease.
Okay, thank you. And the important thing you said there is you did offer this condition of consumption of alcohol with, as I understand it, hot food, a substantial meal, to people seated. And would that be just for people inside the pavilion, or people outside as well?
Absolutely, yeah. It would only be for seated. So we would actually bring the alcohol to the table to make sure that they're seated, and it would only be for inside the premises and the green. So although I have 20 covers on the front of the cafe, I would not be serving alcohol to the front. It would only be inside and on the actual pavilion green.
I see. So that does include an outside area, which is on the bowling green.
That's correct, but that's part of my establishment as well. I own the green as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Allen, did you want to come in now?
Yes, I was just happy to hear that you're not going to have amplified music, but you did mention about having portable speakers in the garden area. So
yeah, so you're just looking at a couple of very low level, low wattage, I don't know if it's 10, 20 watt speakers just on the corner that would play low level music. And I'd invite anyone here to come and listen to how loud we'd be intending to play it. The people on the green probably wouldn't be able to hear the music, let alone across Stafford Road and in the residential area. So it's just to have mood music. That's it, just to have mood music.
Okay, so you're quite happy with a condition that amplified music would not apply other than low volume within the garden area?
Absolutely. So my application specifically did not tick amplified. I specifically took amplified out of it because I didn't want to give the impression it was going to be loud music. So it's low level because you want people to still be able to hear and discuss and chat while they're having their food and drink. So it would just be low level just to give a better atmosphere on the patio area.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you both. I don't have any questions. You've both covered them quite well. So could I move on to Councillor Clifton's here? I'll just give him a moment.
He's back on.
Yes.
Am I back in now?
Yes, so you can hang up now. Excellent. That's a bit easier to see people now. Could I ask the other persons to provide their submission to the committee? So just to confirm, we've got a Mr. Agrawal, Mr. Crane, Councillor Ed Joyce, Miss Punia, Mrs. Patel, and Mrs. Shepherd to speak. Is that all correct?
That's all correct. That we have an order because of different people needing to leave.
That's okay.
Claire and Mike would be the first and second. And I would be at the last. I think the other three are okay, but I've got Ms. Barrett, Hirdana, and Chital in the order that we've agreed. But certainly Claire and Mike need to be first.
Yep, okie dokie, that's fine. It is up to you to order your submission. Your submission should be an expansion on the details that you've provided in the representations. There is no need to necessarily read out the representations, as it were, and you'll have up to 15 minutes between you all. Off you go.
Right, I believe Claire's left, so I'll go first. My name's Mike Crane. I live opposite in Sandy Lane North, opposite the park. Dave has already mentioned me. I've lived there for over 20 years, and in that 20 years, I've noticed a increase in antisocial behaviour in the park in general. I've got 4 points to make, which is based on my submission, but just a bit of an expansion. Point 1 is, since the closure of the Harrow in Sandy Lane North and then the windmill on Stafford Road, there's been a significant increase in the number of drunks that have congregated in the park by the garden area near CMW Garage. That is very, very close to me, and they are a problem. Some of them are collapsing. We often get ambulances there having to recover drunks. Point number 2 is, since they moved the children's playground, which used to be on a site adjacent to Sandy Lane North, to the centre of the park, teenagers have started to gather in the playground and the skate park. I know this because I've got 2 kids, and their friends used to gather in that area. When they gather, we can hear them, and they are very close to where Dave Kerness's Pavilion Cafe is. And in the evening, we can hear them playing their music on their phone, and we can also hear them laughing and also playing with the playgrounds. So often they do things like they try to get the swings around the pole at the top, and we can hear all the clanging even though it's after dark and the playground's shut. And we can also hear them challenging things like setting fire to park benches and to the bins in the park. The third point is, when the social club by Wilson's is having a party or an event and they're playing music, admittedly amplified music, we can hear that music. Now that is twice as far as Dave Kerness's cafe. And the final point that I've got to make is that I've worked in the hospitality industry for almost 35 years. And I know that it's very, very hard to stop people taking drinks or glasses from the venue. In this location itself, there's a gate from the green area. I apologise about the dog. The postman has obviously just arrived, and so he's going mad. So I hope you can all hear me. And so unless Dave actually puts security on those gates to stop people from taking the glasses out, I honestly can't see how he's going to be able to control it. I've experienced it. I've worked in several large pubs serving 100, 140 covers, and we were never able to control it. And we used to have loads of staff. And so I just don't see how Dave's going to be able to stop people taking drinks from his green area out to the park and drinking out anywhere on the park. Okay, that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you.
And is it me because someone is not there? Hello?
Go for it.
Yeah, this is Bharat Agrawal. I moved to Wallington in 2014 when my son got admission in Wilson's school. I have 3 points to make here, and I think they were part of my initial objections as well. My first point is, what is the purpose of a park, community park? Are we deviating it from there? The purpose of community park, especially in a conditions and weathers of UK, is to make sure the family get time, and family and children gets the time to do some activities. We remember sending our kids to park when he was in year 8 on his own, especially during the winter time as well, when it gets dark sooner. I'm not sure when the pub will be there. I will be comfortable sending him on his own with 100 people drinking in a pub, and he's playing at the same time. So I think the whole purpose of the park will be missed if we allow this pub be there. I understand. I drink myself. I visit pub myself. There are people who really do social drinking, but you cannot control. I have been to so many pubs, and it's difficult for anyone to guarantee that they can control the crowd. At least forget about 100, even 50. Controlling a crowd of 30, 40 is difficult in a pub. And my final point is, there is a walkway around the park. You must have seen a lot of people who live nearby. They must have seen the people walk and jog around the park. And I do myself. I take a couple of rounds almost every day. If we allow the drinking on the green area, that also means we are allowing smoking in the green area, right? So if people are smoking and I'm walking next to it every day, 3-4 times, how much smoke I'm inhaling, though I'm not a smoker? Probably, I think with the exercise and all, I inhale a lot of cigarette smoke, which I'm not supposed to. So if this park goes on, probably council might need to move that walkway to further somewhere else. So if this pub is allowed to open. So my 3 points are, the purpose of the park is not right. The safety of the children. Even if somebody guarantees me, I will not be comfortable sending them alone. That means they will reduce their exercise time. And my third point is that the walkway where people walk and jog will be smoky, because people drink and smoke at the same time most of the time. So these are my 3 points. Thank you.
Okay. Cassie, how are they doing for time? Do we still need? Oh, well, I assume others still require.
Yeah, so they've had 8 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Oh. Hello.
Hello there. Who is this?
This
is Hithana Panaya.
Okay.
I agree with both Mike and Barrett. I lived on Redford Avenue in Wallington. It's my parents' house for 16 years now. We moved in because me and both my sisters got into Wallington Girls, and I'm pregnant myself. And my aim is to live in Wallington for the near future, for my kids to go to Wallington Girls or Wilson's as well. I used to go to that park when I was a kid, and it was a family-friendly park. It has gotten worse. We moved into that specific area because we had the perfect shopping centre inside Croydon if we wanted to go there. And if you wanted that lively, drinking, buzzing side of things, then you go down to Wellington High Street. I personally wouldn't be safe sending my kid off to the park by himself or herself. I remember having loads of extra activities after school, walking home by myself. I'm scared that the burglaries around there, crime will go up as well. We also moved there because both my dad's brothers live on Link Lane. So we wanted to have that kind of family community feel. And they're nearly 70 now. And, you know, with different health issues, they go to bed by 6 o'clock. I just don't, exactly like Mike said as well, I don't know how they're going to control the music. They say they're specifically not going to be alcohol outside. I just don't think it can be controlled. And I'm personally scared if anyone, you know, some drunk does wander around, walk through Redford Avenue. It's just, I'm a family full of girls as well. So, you know, it's just, I don't think it's safe. That was it. Thank you.
Hi, this is Shita Patel. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents who live on Stafford Road. They're both in their 80s and neither speak English very well, so I'm just a spokesperson. Frankly speaking, I agree with all of the other speakers in terms of the objections for granting a license for music and alcohol, simply because it is a family park. It's right next to an outdoor gym. It's right next to a children's playground. And it's a place for the community to go and take exercise and enjoy some peace and quiet away without having to confront alcohol or drug abuse or antisocial behavior while they're awake. You know, it's bad enough when they're asleep and you have alcoholics, you know, drunks walking past your home. The number of times we've had people move my parents' bins from the front of their drive to the front door because they're drunk and they think because they're boisterous they can get away with it, and they do get away with it. It's a small crime, it's an annoyance, but when you're that age, it is scary. And introducing alcohol at any time of the day in that park is only going to increase that type of behavior. It is simply for that reason. I mean, there are other reasons, but this is a principal reason why we object to it. Of course, you know, there are financial reasons, there are psychological reasons. All of those put aside, my parents' safety, their health, their well-being is paramount. With this license, that is at risk. I do not see why they should have to be their old age has to be put at risk because a cafe in the park decides that it wants to have alcohol served with food. If people want alcohol with food, they're more than welcome to go to another place. And there are plenty of other choices within Wallington, walking distance, that provides both. Why can a cafe not retain its current status? I cannot say anything more than that at this moment in time. I've done my piece.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it okay? Thank you. That's great. Very helpful. Is it right if I can, because I'm going to run out of time, Jake? Is that okay?
I think it's okay to go ahead. How long have they got left?
3 minutes more, so I'm going to go. Okay. So the main grounds that I have for objection is that the cafe could cause a public nuisance, particularly on the grounds of noise. Essentially, what we're looking at here is creating a pub-like environment in the park, and we need to see, is this the right location for this type of facility? The applicant states that they want to have outside events with music, obviously 60 people sitting on the green and drinking, so a noise that would go along with that. And that's this, I've received a lot of notifications to disturb local residents. There's people working from home along the opposite side. There's a home for children with adults with learning disabilities and so on. So, you know, there's a lot of concerns about the noise that will arise. Also, on the grounds of protection of children, the cafe has a toilet, and this toilet was there to replace one that was demolished. When the cafe was built, it was done on the basis that children would be able to come and use that toilet. Unaccompanied children will come into the cafe and use the toilet in the cafe. Now, of course, it's going to be something more akin to a pub-like environment, and we need to see if that is really that's suitable. Now, there was an unlicensed event, cinema in the park, last Friday, and I just feel that these kind of events, that was obviously closed by officers, could be more likely to occur if we have this license agreed? And is this really the kind of thing we're looking for? Is this the right venue? There are better venues for this type of thing. So I've been a councillor for 10 years. I had more objections to this than anything else I've ever dealt with. There is tremendous opposition on the ground, and it's all from local residents who don't think this is the right place for this type of facility. So I would therefore request that councillors would reject this licence for alcohol to be served and this environment to be created. Thank you.
Okay, you're bang on time there.
Good to hear.
Could I just ask, do the panel have any questions for any of the other persons? No? Okay. Could I ask just very quickly?
Secretary, can I just ask one question?
Okay, yep, go ahead.
Well, can I ask, with regard to the offer of a condition that alcohol would only be provided for people who were seated at a table, a consumption of alcohol with hot food, and that would be a condition for the supply of alcohol, and closing at 5:30. Does that make any difference to your representations?
Okay, so the issue is that there will be a lot of people sat outside eating and drinking, and that would then create noise, obviously the music as well. Plus, and because people are working, this is one of the issues that's being raised, and it's the general creation of that type of environment in the park. So is that the right location? People love to have a cafe in the park, but the kind of environment we're looking at is not supported, and you see objected by very many residents. So there's a lot of concern. So that would not answer my objections, I'm afraid, and that I would like to see this sent back. If possible.
Okay, I was going to ask a similar question there. Councillor Allen, have you got any questions?
Yes, we have discussed the entertainment and also the issue about takeaway, and it's all for consumption within that area. So you're not supplying any alcohol to anyone else who's not actually having a hot meal at the time. And we do have a precedent already been set by the fact that 2 other parks within the borough already have licensed premises on them. So what is different to this one that makes you object so much?
Okay, so this one is that a question for me, Councillor Allen?
It is a question for you, Councillor Joyce.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with those other 2 cafes. Could you tell me which cafes they are?
We have one in Manor Park, and perhaps officers could advise where the second one is, because they did say there were 2 already.
Just to confirm, there's the Manor Park and the cafe located at the bottom of Sutton High Street, which is by the green area.
Sutton Green, yeah.
Okay, so speaking for the Manor Park Cafe, I think that's a great location for having such a facility. It doesn't have any houses nearby. It's in an urban area. There are many other similar premises. So I would agree that those are great locations for such a facility. But this one is right in the middle of a residential area. And it's so I don't see that there's a similarity. I don't think they set a precedent.
Well, I hear what you say about being in a residential area, but it's on Stafford Road. So anything to the south of it, yes, there is housing, but to the north of it, there is no adjacent housing. Until you go to the other end of the park.
I'm sorry, but there's houses all the way around that park.
Yes, they're around the park, but the adjacent to it is on Stafford Road. It's the other side of Stafford Road.
So you're saying that the people at that cafe are not going to come anywhere near our houses? I'm sorry, but they do.
Well,
We hear them all the time.
Sorry, there are houses all around that park.
Excuse me, please. Again, if you're going, if we want to be able to speak, you do need to ask through me as chair. We do have to keep some degree of order, and Mr. Allen is perfectly entitled to ask questions.
Chair, if I may just interject just with some legal advice. Obviously, we have got these other parks that have been mentioned, but obviously each case is to be treated on its own merits. So just because one has been granted, it doesn't automatically mean that this one has to be granted. It's just the circumstances of this case to be considered. But obviously that is a better question to ask about what the differences are. But just to stress that we're concerned with this particular premises and the representation received.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen, did you want to continue? Or?
Yes, on page 107 of the package was sent to us. The cafe is in the centre of the park and basically adjacent to Stafford Road. Yes, there are properties all around it, but most of them are fairly long distance away from the actual cafe, apart from the ones on Stafford Road.
Okay, I think that we'll leave that there. Could I just ask a question around? It's relating to the event that Councillor Joyce has mentioned. Could I just bring the licensing officer Hannah Smith in, who can perhaps clarify some elements of that, please?
Yes, hello. We were notified last Friday morning from the police that we had intel that an event was to take place. Obviously, from my protocol, I did explain that such an event would need to have permissions and licenses. I believe our lead licensing officer actually went down to the venue to Mellows Park, which the event was immediately cancelled. I believe there might have been some miscommunication with regards to that. We did actually have officers out that evening as well to ensure that the event didn't take place, and I can clarify that event didn't happen. But like I said, the event organiser, and I believe the license, the person there would straight away when this event's cancelled.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that as it is an investigation, there's only a certain degree that can be mentioned, but it is helpful to have.
Sorry, Councillor Short. I wondered, is it right for the applicant to have a chance to comment on that?
I think so, yes. Would you want to come in, David?
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I was a little bit duped there. It was a silent cinema. They showed me a licence that said they were allowed to use Mellows Park. I think they did have a licence, but I think it was just for the cinema screening, the actual being allowed to show the film. But it said Mellows Park. They asked if they could use my green. I said, yep, fine. I'd leave the gate open. And that's pretty much, there was no kind of benefit to me. There was no income, just a bit of naivety for me on that one. So my apologies with that. That should never have taken place. And
that's all sort of understood, and you're with the licensing team working on that one, I take it?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was a bit of naivety. My understanding was they could use the park. They wanted to use the green because then other people couldn't just turn up without paying for a ticket to watch it. So my agreement with them I'll leave, the gate will be open if you want to use the green, and that's fine. But yeah, looking at the outcome of that, my understanding is they should have had a proper events license to be able to do that. So yeah, a learning for me on that, and I have to take some accountability for it as well. I should have stopped them before the council intervened.
Okay.
So is that if I comment, Councillor Short, or if I haven't used my allowance?
You can respond again. Yeah. Okay. There is no limit on the question, at least.
Okay, I just wonder if this is the right time to be granting this license. There's obviously a lot of concern. There's issues. There's been, a party in the park. Sorry, a cinema in the park, I should say, last Friday. And we I think we're looking at a situation where there's a lot of unknowns and concerns. So to me, can the applicant not bring this back at another time if when we've looked at these issues? I mean, I think they have a chance to reapply, don't they?
I think, Hannah, would you be best placed to answer that regarding whether they can then reapply? I think the answer is yes, but I'd rather get clarification first.
The applicant could, but obviously this application would have to be withdrawn in full. There's nothing stopping that if, for example, if this one was granted, he then could apply for a different licence. You can apply for it, there's no limitation. But that's on the basis that the application is withdrawn. It's more the decision of the committee with regards to the application.
Okay, and if we were to,
sorry, Councillor Shaw, can I make a suggestion? I know I'm not in a position necessarily to make a suggestion, but since I'm relatively close to this, is it, as Councillor Joyce said, if there was a chance of a postponement, and the group that are objecting, including myself and Councillor Joyce, if Dave was willing to have the group of us there to try to allay some of our fears and then reapply, it may be that there won't be as much of an objection from the local people. I hear that Dave said that we didn't visit. I just haven't had time to visit.
Okay. My comment would be that that's up to the applicant fundamentally. But the process set out in the Licensing Act that's got us here today is designed precisely for that. So the applicant receives copies of representations and contact details so that they can, if they wish, try to mediate and come to some sort of arrangement. It's not, now that we're here, it's not really in our gift to suggest to the applicant either way. So I would kindly throw that back to the applicant and suggest what his thoughts on it are.
Well, the two things for myself. Number one, and we said about the timing, and I appreciate Councillor Edward Joyce's comments. As I said right at the beginning, this is all about timing because I need to survive the winter. And you heard the government announcement yesterday, things are getting worse, not better. So I'm really, really concerned, will I have the funds to be able to survive the winter? The second point, I really would be happy to entertain, and I would love to postpone this and re-engage with the residents. As I said, in retrospect and hindsight, I'd love to have done that initially. I didn't feel I'd get this many disagreements, as I say, because nobody in the cafe that I discussed this with had any concerns. My only worry with that, again, it's financial. So maybe Hannah would be able to answer this for me. If I reapply, am I going to have to, because this has cost me about £700 to make this application, I will not have the funds to make that application again. Will I have to, re-advertise in the paper with the blue notices, reapply? Is the costings the same, or is it merely a postponement?
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to interject. There is, I don't know whether Hannah should speak first, but obviously there is the way that the application could be withdrawn and then reapplied for, and the process would have to go through, we'd have to go through all of this again. The other possibility is that if the parties do wish to meet to try and discuss the timings and potential conditions that may satisfy themselves, that this committee hearing could be postponed if the committee consider this to be in the public interest. I think, let me find the regulation, but it would, it's the applicant really, it's the applicant who's, making the application. The committee is obliged to determine it within a certain time frame, but perhaps a possibility could be a short adjournment for the parties to then have a site visit, etc., discuss, and then for it to be brought back, I'd say within a fairly short time frame. We'd have to look at a specific date to postpone it to, maybe in a week's time, say, week to 2 weeks, to see if, to allow for that to happen. It's really up to I think it's probably stronger in the applicant's court, because we are obliged to determine it within a certain time. That is a possibility, rather than start the whole process again, because you didn't offer any conditions in the schedule. You've offered some conditions today. Had they been put in the schedule, that might have allayed some of the concerns or narrowed the issues. So that might have been of benefit. But if that's something you seriously would consider, then the other option is just to say to the committee to determine it today, and then either side has the option to challenge the
review
decision.
process, isn't there?
Yeah, there is the option to appeal the decision. There is also the review process that if problems occur after grant, then that would be a separate process that would have to be lodged to apply for those houses. But is that something the applicant would be willing?
There is a possible other alternative, would be to grant on a temporary basis, say for a month or two, to allow the residents and the applicant to get together to make sure that they're all happy with what's happening, and then make the either approve it fully or decline it.
Yeah. Is that possible, Simon?
Could I just speak on that? Is that okay, Councillor Shaw?
Could I just get the legal advisor's opinion first before we go further on that?
Okay.
Sorry, I really am going to have to leave. Sorry.
Okay. Simon, could you? Is that possible?
I mean, it's not really in the spirit of the Act to have a. I mean, there are possibilities of a time-limited licence, and at the end of that, then the applicant would have to reapply. The usual method is that the licence would be granted, and then if any problems occurred, then residents or any person can apply for a review to say, look, this is not working, these are the issues, and then apply to the committee to have the licence either revoked or cut back.
Is it okay to speak, Mr. Schultz, Councillor Schultz?
I think it's best we go to Councillor Joyce first, because he's been waiting, and then I'll bring you in. Is that okay?
Okay. Could you just explain to me about the appeals? Because clearly, with so many objections, it would definitely be going to appeal. What's the appeal process? So if we're going to say grant a license because we need it quickly, is that license get granted and then the appeal is heard? So can you give me some detail on that, please?
Simon, would you be willing to answer that?
No.
Yes, sorry. Yes, if the license is granted, because this is not a review, the decision would, let me just double check whether the decision would actually come into effect. I'll just check those provisions and come back to you in a second. But I mean, from our own point of view, because of the court system, the way it's operating at the moment, it's unlikely that an appeal would be heard for a substantial amount of time. And that in an appeal process, there usually is some mediation involved or some settlement to believe in, to lead to a middle ground. So for the sake of all parties concerned, I would probably advise if that's the way it's going to go, then I think the best option then would be to postpone this meeting for 1 or 2 weeks to try and thrash out an agreement, because really going down the appeal route is expensive, time consuming for everybody involved, and is going to be a long process, which is going to come back to this same issue of trying to find some middle ground somewhere. But I'll just check the legal position as to whether the decision does come into effect. I have a feeling the decision would come into effect
after the appeal period.
Grant, yes, but let me just double check that.
Okay. And once we've done that, I'll come to you, Mr. Kernes.
Yeah, sure. It's really, I'm interested in the two options of either a time-limited license. I like the idea of that, because then the onus is on me to prove that I'm responsible and that there are no objections from the residents in how we manage it. No loud music, no. Really important to state, it's illegal to sell alcohol to somebody under the influence. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I was, handing alcohol to somebody who appeared to be drunk. So it's really important to state that. But anyway, I'm happy for a time limited. That would be great because I could prove that we would be responsible. And I'm also not opposed to a postponement, but I don't want to put the committee under any pressure, or I'm just happy to try and get as much agreement from the residents as possible.
Sorry, can I just clarify that, for example, if you were today to withdraw your application, to reapply, you would have to do the whole application process again and pay.
I wouldn't be able to afford at the moment.
Same as well as if it was to be the license was issued for a set amount of time. Again, once that set time was ended, again you'd have to pay and reapply again, unfortunately, under the Act. But we'll wait on Simon's once she comes back. But to clarify the application process, it would unfortunately mean reapplying. That would mean the application fee, the local newspaper, which I know is probably the most expensive part. But I will wait on Shila's reply.
It sounds as though what we should be looking at is granting. If we grant it, then you have a review in say 2 or 3 months' time, in which case it could be withdrawn. That would avoid having to pay the £700 fees time and time again.
Yeah, because I would also add as well that if for example the license today was granted with the added changes that the applicants made, anyone has the right to apply to review a license. If the premises did start causing problems, they are entitled to put a review in. Anyone could do it. So members of the public, councillors, any of our responsible authorities can do it.
So if the license is granted with the conditions which we've all discussed, it can be basically reviewed at any time after that. Subject to whoever makes the application.
Yes.
Okay.
Which would, if a review, I can't say it now. If a review was called, it would be the same sort of process. It would become to a hearing in front of the committee again. But like I said, anyone can do that.
Okay.
Councillor Short, can I make another comment?
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
Just if the license, a time-limited license, was granted, I would still also have the intention of working with Councillor Joyce to get those residents together, because even with being granted, I'd still want to get them to understand my vision and what I'm trying to achieve and trying to lay their fears as well. So I would still be trying to get those residents together. I was going to do that, but I was on holiday last week, which made the timing too short for me to make that happen.
I think the time limited is probably not an option, because if it's time limited, you've then got to reapply all over again. So the only way really is either grant the license and then it's subject to review, or not to grant the license
and postpone for a week or so until.
Yeah. Could I speak as well, Jake? Now we've done a round. Is that all right?
Just very quickly, could I just clarify, if we were to proceed today with the hearing, and if we were then to grant, would you be willing to work with the residents, show them the setup?
Absolutely. I would still want a meeting on the green and give them an example of how it would work, who would operate, introduce the 2 people that would be the only people allowed to serve alcohol, and also do a little bit of a kind of show and tell on what being a personal licence holder is all about, and my personal responsibilities, to try and give the confidence that we'd be doing it in a responsible manner.
Okay, if I come to Councillor Joyce quickly, and I think it might be worth me perhaps just suggesting what I feel are our 2 options going forward.
Okay, yeah. So what I was going to say, speaking really through Councillor Short to the applicant, is that we're faced with 2 options. One of them appears to be to have a 1 to 2 week delay and then a decision, and the other one is to make a decision now. I believe that it will be in the we need to look at goodwill in the community and trying to create that goodwill between the cafe and the community. And I believe that the best gain there is to wait 2 weeks to have that, rather than presenting a decision to the residents, which I think would cause a lot of concern that their objections hadn't been heard. So I think it would be better for the applicant to have that 2 week delay, if we can agree that. But of course, let's see what is decided by the committee. Thank you.
Okay. So just to really to ask the other members of the panel here, I feel as though we've got really two options before us. The first one being to just proceed as planned today and come to a decision, or alternatively, we agree between the three of us to postpone the hearing for perhaps a week, so a 1-2 week period to allow for the applicant and the other people to have a dialogue. Which of those two would you be most in favour of at this point?
Well, can I say, I mean, I think it's unfair on the applicant to delay too long. I think that one should allow perhaps if I could just make sure I understand the second option, it would be to say that we delay a week, which would give the applicant an opportunity to have this meeting with Councillor Short and with Councillor Joyce, and the residents, and see what can be done to allay concerns. And then would this be just the three of us? Would reconvene a week from now. Perhaps the officers can, as it were, monitor and report back to us whether there's any what outcome was from those discussions. And then we are discussing whether or not we're prepared to grant the licence, with the conditions that were offered by the applicant, which were, just to remind myself, were the limitation of the sale of alcohol to circumstances where it's with the consumption of a substantial meal of hot food to people seated on the premises, and with a time limit of up to 5:30 in the evening, which is a fairly substantial offer. Am I right, Councillor Short, that's basically what?
I believe so. I think the question we need to ask ourselves as a panel is: do we feel informed enough to come to a view that balances the concerns that the residents have got with the desires of the applicant? Are we in a position to do that today?
Perhaps, Chair,
I'll answer that for the two of you.
Perhaps, Chair, it would be because really are supposed to determine within set time limits. So where are we with that, Hannah? Are we close to the time limit for determination? Do you know, Hannah and Cassie?
I can just double check. Hold on.
And in the meanwhile, I mean, I suppose it's mainly really the applicant that's sort of prejudiced by the delay. So what is the applicant's view on this? Because the trouble with a time limited licence is that you're then back to square one. You have to reapply. I've checked the appeal provisions. It's only with reviews that the decision doesn't come into effect. So if a new licence is granted, it's granted. If the residents appeal it, then that will take a while to come to court. But with a grant, then the residents have got the option of a review process. Then that if problems occur, they can apply to the committee to look at the licence again to cut it back, which would probably be quicker than an appeal in the current circumstance because the magistrate court's got such backlog.
Sorry, Shaima, I better confirm that the last day of hearing is actually today. Today was our last day.
So this,
So
I
we
mean, this
don't have the
can be,
option to postpone
well,
anymore.
you can extend it. You do have the power to extend it where you consider it to be necessary in the public interest. But I think we need to hear the applicant's thoughts on this because perhaps hear what the applicant has to say first, and then.
As I say, sorry, Councillor Short, if I respond to that, then I mean, whatever happens, I intend to engage with the residents, and it does sound like that if there was a postponement, there would be an opportunity to gather them together. But the provisions that I've made today, the restrictions, I don't think would change. I'm not really sure what else I could restrict to engage them any more than what I'm presenting today. So whatever happens, I intend to engage with those residents. But if the committee wants me to do that engagement before meeting again to make a decision, I'm happy to do that. But I'm also happy if you want to proceed today, because whatever happens, I'll be engaging with the residents one way or the other.
Wait, could I say, I thought there was a slight confusion there. I think, Councillor Short, your choices to us were either to reach a decision today or to postpone reaching a decision for a week or so while the applicant met with the residents. And that we weren't talking about some time-limited license, which I think we reached the conclusion. I thought we reached the conclusion that that would be unfair to the applicant because he has to get all the expense of applying again, and that anyhow there could be if things went dramatically wrong, well, or even if they went wrong at all, there was a provision that enabled people to seek a review at any time. So which seems seems in a sort of reasonable way. But it does seem to me that what Hannah has said really closes off options. It does seem to me that we've actually got to reach a review. Can I say that personally, I do feel that I have heard enough from the applicant and from the residents to be able to reach a decision.
Okay, if I could answer that comment from Councillor Clifton, I'm in agreement with the applicant, the second of his suggestions, where he says he's happy to meet and with residents, and also what Simon says about just we have in the public interest the right to extend it. I believe it would be in the applicant's interest and residents' interest to take that. So I'm agreeing with that second one. As far as the appeal is concerned, I'm not I don't speak for residents, but I'm not thinking about taking a court appeal. If there's no internal procedure, then I think we'll have an issue there with residents. But that'll be that. So I'm taking up the second of those suggestions from the applicant, just for a week to delay, to try and speak to residents and make sure that we can allay fears.
Okay, Councillor Allen.
I've heard enough now. I think I'm also in a position now where I could reach a decision. Do we now need to go into this amongst ourselves?
We will do. I should just say for the record, it's immaterial now because this is you two are a majority, and that I would have probably preferred a postponement, but that is 2-1. Therefore,
sorry. Short. Is a postponement possible? Because all right now, I would go with that.
If it,
but I said from Hannah.
Hannah, could I go back to you again just to confirm if we were minded to postpone, would that be legal?
Legal would have to clarify that.
Sorry about that.
Muted.
Simon, you're still muted.
Sorry, I was just trying to reduce background noise. Regulation 13, an authority subject to regulation 11, subject to regulation 13, an authority may extend a time limit provided for in these regulations for a specified period where it considers this to be necessary in the public interest. And then there is another provision about adjourning meetings. I mean, this may be one where you might just want to perhaps shortly go into, I don't know whether that's possible, into a short private session to discuss it, or if you're happy to discuss it as is.
I would prefer to go to a private session.
Yes, I mean, I think, Simon, what you've mentioned about Regulation 11 is quite important.
But it's whether it's necessary in the public. I mean, obviously, as you said, the process itself does allow time for parties to have negotiations.
And that wasn't taken, and that has still led us to the point where we are. Yes, so I think on balance, I do agree with.
Sorry, and the applicant has offered things today which wasn't in the paperwork, which sort of changes it.
I think so. With that in mind, I think we should continue today. As Councillor Clifton and Councillor Allen have mentioned, they do feel in a position to come to a decision today.
Sorry, I do feel in a position to come to a decision. On the other hand, I do agree with Councillor Joyce that it would be better if we were coming to a decision after there had been these discussions between the applicant and the resident. If it is the case, and it has been said, that it is possible in the public interest to extend the time limit and for us to come back in 1 week's time after these discussions have taken place and reconvene and reach a decision, then I'd be in favour of that.
Yes, I mean, the reconvened meeting would be similar to what it is today. All the parties would be there, and I think it would just be a brief summary, perhaps from perhaps a representative from each side, Mr. Cunnis and Councillor Joyce,
and then closed session, presumably.
Yes, in effect, I suppose it would be a summary of what conclusions they've come to, and then you would make the ultimate decision.
Okay. Are we comfortable with that, Councillor Allen and Councillor Clifton?
Yes.
Yes, but we just have to make sure our diaries that we have time available next week.
So if we agree now to postpone to a time next week, and then we go into closed session to decide between the three of us when we can, the three of us are available.
Well, I think you've also got to have the Councillor Joyce and
yes, that's true,
to be available as well. Otherwise, there's no point having a meeting for just the three of us.
Yes.
I will make myself available for whatever meeting is set, unless there's a council clash, which there won't be at this time of day.
So so just to be clear, we as per I've just had some advice from Cassie, we will need to raise a motion for deferral. So that being the case, I would propose a motion to defer pending our agreement on a time. Would simply a week's deferral to next Thursday?
No, I can't do next Thursday. I've got an LGA board meeting next Thursday. And I've also got meetings on Monday, so I've only got Tuesday, Wednesday or Friday.
Okay, I'm quite keen to get this decided sort of as soon as possible. So is Tuesday possible for us?
Tuesday's fine.
I have a meeting at 1 o'clock at the Council and Employees Joint Committee, which I chair. So if we could do it in the morning, sort of as early as possible in the morning, that should be okay.
So if we were to say 9 a.m. on Tuesday, just so it's as early as we can do without being unreasonably early, is that agreeable?
Just one question is: am I allowed to just put a question to Councillor Joyce? Or do I put it to yourself, Councillor?
Yeah, put it to me.
That's fine.
Okay.
Obviously, if we go ahead for next Tuesday, that means that between now and then we have to have this meeting. And I'd feel uncomfortable contacting the residents directly. One of the things from this process was all the objections. I had their addresses, etc., which were not blacked out. So I know how I'd feel if the proprietor was contacting me directly. So it's whether Councillor Joyce is going to be able to ensure that we can get those representations together at the cafe, and if he's okay giving me the date and the time.
Yeah, Okay, so the answer on that one is: do I have the all the details of the objectors? I think they were only given to the applicant. They're not given to other objectors. I've got the 6 from today, but not the long list. I think it would be good to contact them, and if they've been given to the applicant, can the applicant pass them to me to contact people to get them to come, or do I have to put some kind of general information around?
Simon, would you be placed to answer that?
My understanding is the private agenda goes to the applicant, and so he's got all the residents' details. I mean, perhaps the ones who are present today could confirm that they're happy to liaise with Councillor Joyce. The other question, I'm not quite sure, is do the residents know the identities of the other residents, or is it the same thing that they've only got the they've only got the private agendas as well? So I think then it would have to be a general communication. I mean, perhaps because normally we do notify all parties, perhaps if we can get something out today or tomorrow from Democratic Services to all the parties by email to say, this is what has happened. Councillor Joyce will be meeting with the applicant in the next few days. Please liaise with him and give perhaps Joyce's details. Would that be the easiest thing, or unless one of the residents can call? But I can't see how they can coordinate if they haven't got the details.
Is it possible for me to speak quickly? Sorry, it's on Canona.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm for work. I'm in Essex at the moment, so obviously my residential address is Wellington, but I'll be down. I won't be down for another 2 weeks. The other problem is I'm based in 3 Redford Avenue, so obviously my parents oppose it as well. However, there's quite a few other family members that live on 12 Redford Avenue, 67 Link Lane, and also 32 Link Lane that all oppose. So, and I think there might be more rejections if we come in a second time round because of their English language barrier. I said I'll speak on their behalf, but there's about an extra 15 people, just family members-wise, that aren't happy with this.
Chair, just to confirm that we can only accept the representations that we've already got. We're not restarting or opening it up. It's just
I was going to say
rejected. Yes, trying to group them. Well, it's Councillor Joyce's suggestion. And the applicant appears to be happy to meet to try and, so I think in effect it would be Councillor Joyce representing the residents, but the difficulty is he doesn't know the identity of all the residents. So my suggestion perhaps would be for Democratic to send the outcome of today's meeting to all the people who have objected, as they would have been given notice of today's hearing, to say it's been adjourned till next Tuesday, for Councillor Joyce to meet with Mr. Canet, the applicant. And if you wish to be a part of that mediation process, please contact Councillor Joyce, if Councillor Joyce is happy.
Yeah, I'm totally happy with that, and I appreciate that. I think that would be excellent. I know many of the residents through links with them, so I will be able to get to many of them just through my personal contacts. But certainly, if my details and telephone number and email was given to all the objectors, I'd very much appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. So now that has been ironed out, I'd like to propose a motion of deferral in the public interest to Tuesday, the 15th of September at 9 o'clock at 9 a.m. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, and is that agreed, Councillor Allen?
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so the motion's passed. I believe, Cassie, would you be okay to explain what might happen next?
So just kind of on Simon's point, obviously we'll get in touch with all the people that handed in representations and obviously explain what happened. I'm pretty sure we don't have to circulate another agenda.
No, it would just be, I think you could put it in the same letter just to save time and expense, to say the meeting has been deferred in the public interest. Well, we can discuss that, but we can then just say it's going to be resumed on Tuesday the 15th shall we say, some concluding remarks following mediation talks, and then for the councillors to go into closed session. Because obviously we've heard all the submissions, it's just whether they've reached any agreements. I think we can't open it all up again. It's going to have to be, we can't repeat it all again. It's just going to be the outcome of the meeting. Does that sound acceptable? And particularly to the applicant, because unfortunately he's not represented and we've not given him a chance to speak. But is he happy with, with what we're saying, that we're not going to restart the process or have any other, it's just going to be a meeting and the outcome of that meeting, and then for the councillors to make a decision?
So let's say, for example, Councillor Joyce arranged for the residents to meet me on, say, Sunday. We would have that meeting. We then reconvene on Tuesday. Myself, I take it, and Councillor Joyce will be on that call as well? Yeah. And what would be, from that meeting on Sunday, are we just relaying the outcome of what happened with that meeting, and that's it? That's pretty much, then you guys come to a conclusion?
Yes, that would, I hope that would be, I assume so. If you've worked out any arrangements or conditions, additional conditions, conveying those to us Tuesday morning before we then take it all into consideration before making a decision.
Thank you, Councillor. That's what I suppose I was trying to get to, Councillor Schultz. So say, for example, I've said 5:30, but the resident said 5 o'clock. We could still make those amendments, and what we've said today, that, right, great, that's where I was kind of, where I was trying to get to.
Yes, if you couldn't quite reach agreement on everything, then obviously it's still where we are now, that it is for the members to decide. They've already indicated they could, if pushed, reach a decision today, but they would like to give you the opportunity, given what's happened, and because new conditions have been offered today which haven't been put to the residents, it would just to give that few days to see if some issues can at least be narrowed, shall we say. And Councillor Joyce seems to be favourable in what he suggests, hasn't he? And you want to engage with them as well, and you regretted not doing it earlier, so it just gives you that opportunity, both sides, to try and come a bit nearer, rather than the committee impose their views when something, some leeway, there might be some things which you've offered that if you offered something else, they would be happier with relaxing that. Do you see what I mean? There might be some other options there that would actually benefit yourself. So without going into detail.
It would also be helpful if officers could produce a schedule of the revised conditions which we have discussed today, so that when we do meet on Tuesday, we have those in front of us, and if there's any additional conditions which Councillor Joyce and the applicant have put, we can discuss those at the same time.
Yes, that's a good point, Councillor Allen. Is that would that be possible? I'm not sure who to go to for that one.
Community services.
Well, I was going to suggest perhaps if the applicant puts together what he's indicated today, and then also, he could use that as a basis for his negotiations with the residents and the councillors. We can always tweak it on the day of the hearing and add or subtract to it, but as he's offered them, I think it's only fair that he puts them how he wants to, speaks to the residents and Councillor Joyce, brings that back to committee, and then you can look at them and you might want to amend them slightly.
Well, perhaps the relevant officer could contact Mr. Clunas and go through that with them, so that we can get this published today, so that we have time to look at it before we meet next Tuesday.
I just say, I don't think negotiations is quite the right word. I think it's a discussion.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry, not yes.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they do. Parties, they do speak beforehand, but obviously, not discussion. Maybe trying to mediate.
Yes, this is all about trying to facilitate people getting together, so that it's as permissive as possible, as is required under the Act. Cassie, would it be worth going through Councillor Allen's point? Would that be feasible for committee services to put that together in time, or?
Yeah, of course. So, for example, if we got something out today, it would obviously be published on the website and circulated to you tomorrow in the courier service.
Okay, that might. So I think I agree with Councillor Allen. That would be quite useful to have. Of course, pending any summary discussion and decision, an agreement that's made between the applicant and the objectors before Tuesday. Having an idea of having it set out, sort of what was offered today and what was originally offered would be quite helpful. But I know the first of those is in the agenda pack as is, so it would just be adding an additional section to what's there already, I think.
I think that's a good idea because it gives Councillor Joyce and the applicant something to discuss with other residents and then take it forward from there.
Okay. So just while we do have the applicant here and in view of the timescales, the conditions I've got down are, well, in the additional information, the applicant did seem to say that he would only serve alcohol in plastic glasses. And then today we've got alcohol only to be supplied with a hot meal to persons seated and by way of waiter and waitress service only. Is the applicant happy with that? And then the other amendment is the terminal hour. At the moment, the application is for 9 o'clock, but the applicant is willing to amend that to 5:30 p.m. 7 days a week. Is that correct?
That's all correct. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other one was to only serve alcohol, only to be served to over 25-year-olds. And then obviously you've got
incorrect.
25.
So we'll have challenge 25, have to provide ID, and anyone under 25 will not be served.
And then the final one, I've got a star against. I don't know whether it was a formal condition, but you said that you wouldn't be selling spirits, just beer and wine. Is that an offered condition as well?
Well, on my original application, I said beer and wine, but at Christmas, Baileys, you might have mulled wine. But I have no intention of having a kind of spirits cabinet and selling spirits, no. Okay,
so so something maybe along the lines that you wouldn't be selling spirits apart from, shall we say, December
seasonal drinks.
Seasonal drink.
And amplified music was the other condition we talked about as well. The fact that it won't be amplified other than within the garden area on low wattage type speakers.
The only slight issue with that, Councillor, is the deregulation provisions. We can't actually, we can put that condition in, but it wouldn't actually be of any effect.
Well, it's already amplified music. It wasn't, I mean, you can play music anytime, but it's the amplified music.
Yeah, my original application was non-amplified, so it is non-amplified on the original application.
Yeah, right.
I suppose you could always.
Yes, I feel like so. This is, I think, for us to discuss on Tuesday in a bit more detail. We've had two parties come together. Is that okay if we leave that for the discussion in detail between the three of us on Tuesday in closed session? With that in mind, thank you all for joining us. It has been quite a long meeting and quite a winding one.
Sorry, can I get Dave Kenneth's phone number, please, Jake? I left the message in the chat.
Would that be okay, Dave, for you to sort that out with Councillor Joyce outside of the meeting if you email